something we all need. Gotta have it now if you wanna succeed. Striving, surviving, that's no doubt. Sticking together, we gon' find a way out. To all you young people, give it your all. To all you young people, give it your all. To all you young people, give it your all. To all you young people, give it your all.
Good morning, the back community. Yeah, you heard it right. It's typically the afternoon or the evening. We have a morning edition this morning. This one is actually special because I'm actually in Albany as I do today's interview as well for the back community. We have David Reali, who's going to be on today, and he and I have been planning this interview for quite some time. So D, it's actually a pleasure to finally be able to connect. I know you are a busy man, but I really wanted to highlight what it is that you are doing, find out more about your projects, the collections that you got going on. But thank you for agreeing to be on the back community. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Pleasure is all mine.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, man, like I said, this one's going to be special for me on all accords, just because, I'm actually in the Capital District on this one. So I'm going to get to it. The whole premise behind this project, as you already know, is to highlight positive individuals for doing what it is that they do. I know that you have a select material or embroidery that you like to work with. You have a style that you do. I've gotten a chance to see some of your work, but here's your opportunity to tell the back community more about you, David, what it is that you do and your passion.
So I would say my passion, that's funny that you asked that because I don't think I've discovered like the actual passion. I just know that I do have a passion for being creative, and I do understand the importance and power in being creative. As humans are, just like I think we're born artists. And I think when we detach from that and we begin to do things that I guess align with just being responsible with life responsibilities, we tend to let go of that sense of freedom that we have as children, from just being creative and sporadic and tapping into our excellence. So I would just say, as far as passion goes, I don't know the thing that I'm passionate about, but I know that being creative is something that I know that I have to always do, whether it's what I'm currently doing or it's other creative platforms, or even if I'm not creating, it's consuming it, or it's aligning myself with others to be inspired by it. So I would say that's the passion right there. But what I do as far as the creativity, so I have a brand called Life Supply, Life spelled LYF, and that acronym is for Love Yourself First. And I've been doing that since 2017. This makes actually 5 years. April makes 5 years of me doing it. So yeah, 5 years. They say for a business, you give a business 5 years and you see what happens after that.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's the business. I've been doing it solely as a self-employed person since 2018. So I've been doing it for 4 years, self-employed. And really it's a range of predominantly embroidered pieces that reflect self-love in some way, shape, or form. But obviously it's more than just the embroidery, because embroidery is just, to me, a skill. Anybody can learn embroidery. But I'm using embroidery and I'm using garments such as hats, shirts, as a tool to express creativity and express self-love. And even if it doesn't say self-love, I think the fact that I'm saying I believe in something I'm creating and I'm putting it out to the world to consume is a form of self-love and reflects the brand as I intended to.
Okay. Yeah. And then sometimes it's people will automatically make that association for you, because as people get a chance to know you and know your work, like you said, it could be a particular shirt, it could be a hat. It doesn't have to say self-love on it, but they're going to see that you did it, and the correlation is automatically going to be tied to what they know you're passionate about, what they know your love is. So self-love is going to be touched, whether directly or indirectly, on each of your pieces. But I love that. And when you said love yourself first, it made me think of a previous guest that we had on as well. And I think she has a clothing brand she's creating too, called Choose Yourself First. But why love yourself first?
Because why not? And because why not? And it's self-love is such an important thing because our lives are going to be subjective. You know, we may grow up in the same house, but our lives are going to be different. We're going to go about living life differently. Things are going to affect us. We don't really have control over how the world will see us, view us, treat us, or anything, but we have full control over how we view ourselves, how we treat ourselves, how we project ourselves into the world. And especially as being a Black person, I think it's very important for us to really look at self-love as a foundation for how we operate, not only amongst ourselves, but amongst each other. I think people may look at self-love in a, I don't know, maybe a selfish connotation, but it's not selfish whatsoever. It's actually selfless, because the more and more you know how to treat yourself, that reflects in how you treat others, how you treat the world, how you communicate with the world, how you function in the world. And in a world where there's so much ugly and so many different things that are out of our control that can affect us, it's important for us to be kind to ourselves, to love ourselves, to really put ourselves first, in a sense of wanting us to essentially make our cup run over, so that we have no choice but to share that with other people. And not from a standpoint of, hey, recognize me for doing things for people. It's no, I just want to share this gift of joy that I experience every morning with other people, because it makes the environment for which I exist in a lot better. And it just makes living more worthwhile. And like I said, there's so many things that are out of our control, whether it's genetics, whether it's any of these things that require our attention. And I think a lot of those things that require our attention falls under the guise of self-love, without it being too much of a buzzword. You know, there's so many buzzwords and hashtags, but I think the fact that something like self-love is something that exists infinitely and without barriers it goes beyond a hashtag. And I think that it brings us, and I think it also reflects on what you're doing with your platform. It's like self-love. It's like we see something in each other. You're not just like, hey, I need something for myself. Let me get this person because I know that. You're like, no, I've someone recommended this. I'm tapped into these things. You know, you said on your Instagram, prepare to be inspired, you know, like something connected with you, and, you know, that you felt like this is important. So in a way, it's like, this is reflecting the way you are communicating with the world by using me. And that's a form of self-love, or just self-acknowledgement. It's like, I see the best in this, but I also see that in me and others that look like me. So, I mean, I can go on for years about self-love, but it's just why self-love? Because why the hell not? We need to. Yeah.
What did it say? Say less. Say less. Why not? Yeah. And it makes perfect sense. And one, I do appreciate you recognizing that, because a lot of times I think not even I'm definitely gonna say, let me limit it. I'm gonna go micro first. In the Capital District, I think that we could stand to have a lot more appreciation, a lot more love, a lot more collaboration for other people's creatives that they're bringing to life, for other people who has a different artistry, passion, whatever it is. And oftentimes it ends up coming off more as a competitive thing. Just like, you know, well, if David has this, you know, that takes away from what it is that I'm able to do. But really it doesn't. And like I said, even with this platform, the platform is like, you know, there's so many dope people out here in the world that are doing great things that often don't get spotlighted, that often don't get highlighted, because we have so much negativity going on. Oh, there's a shooting at Crossgate Mall. Let's talk about that. No, let's talk about the people who are creating life and bringing life and trying to sustain life even in a negative environment. And that's what we do. But and that's like overall, the things that we're doing are creative, right? And they're made to be consumed. And I think when we think less about
just like, okay, this person's competition. It's like, no, what can we do together to enhance the experience for those that are going to come here for what we have? The whole point is to get people to click on our sites, to click on, or to come to our cities, or to come to things that we're doing. And the more reasons you give them to come, and the more and more you enhance the experience, the better. And no one person could just do that by themselves. And I think collaboration is kind of like such a, I don't want to say it's a new concept, but I think it's a concept that we're starting to really see the importance in now, especially in this area. Because I'm being from here. I mean, I used to be a musician. I used to rap and all that stuff. And I just remember back when I would rap, and just like, it was just very weird. Sometimes you collaborate, sometimes it's like, it's very standoffish. But what I've grown to realize is, as a human being, like, not even just doing like my brand, but as a human being, is like, the more opportunities I had to stimulate my creativity, to find people that I really thought were amazing without them having to be celebrities or anything like that, the better my life was, the better my day was, the better the energy was. So even if it wasn't like an immediate exchange or transaction, it was something that allowed me to go home and say, you know what, today I'm not gonna quit, or today, I'm gonna take this feeling I had and I'm gonna now express it through how I, project my creativity. But I wouldn't have even been able to receive that had I not been more open to appreciating collaboration, even if it's not formal collaboration, but allowing myself to go to someone who may do the same thing as me and seeing the brilliance in it, because it's creativity, it's art, it's all of these things, but it's brilliance. And having my brand has helped me realize that, because I do embroidery for other people. I started kind of doing it for like local musicians. I still do it for musicians now, but like a lot of different brands and companies. And I look at them, and a lot of times I get inspired. Sometimes they'll pick certain colors. I'm like, damn, that's dope. And I'm like, hey, I hope you don't mind if I use this concept in some capacity. But it's like, I could easily just like, man, I'm not doing anything for them because they have something dope and that's going to take away from me. But no, there's enough of everything. And every now and then I still write rhymes. And one of my quotes was, there's enough of everything for everyone to get it, no matter what. So I think once you look at it, and you also see like an abundance of creativity, you're like, yo, here's an opportunity for more eyes to be in this direction, because this is you know what I mean? It's abundant in creativity. It's abundant in excellence and brilliance. So more people are going to want to come here, and I want to contribute instead of saying I should be the only one. And that's why this area, I think it's happening more now. Yeah.
Good. And it's, and this is my last point I'll bring on it. The word synergy comes to mind, right? The sum of the whole is greater than any of the individual parts, right? So if you're doing your thing, like right now, I know you've been centralized in Troy for the last couple of years, right? But if you're doing your thing, right? Let's say you have Marky over here doing his thing for culture, right? You have all these different people, but it's just like, it's enough space for it all, right? It's enough space for it all. And it's just like, each of our pieces come together to form a collective whole. Nobody's greater than the other person. You may have more followers, you may get more money, but when you look at it on a macro level, you know what I mean? The sum is greater than any of the individual parts. And that's the way that I see it. That's the way I envision it. I think that we have so many dope individuals here that are so creative. And it's just like, man, yo, so it's a lot. I'm naturally, I like to network. I like to connect people that I think would actually be able to birth life or to birth something new. You know what I mean? And that's it. So I love your sentiments exactly.
Right.
Spot on.
Yeah,
Sure.
Let
me see. But for you, like I said, I know you centralized in Troy for the last couple of years. But what part of the Capital District did you grow up in? Schenectady,
New York, by way of Steinmetz Homes, man. Schenectady that's the hometown. That'll always be. Nice. That's the core. Yeah, that's definitely the core. Yeah,
nice, man. Shout out to Schenectady, man. I used to work in Schenectady for years.
Oh yeah, where?
over there on Broadway. What is it? I think it's called One Commerce Plaza now. I'm not sure. Or the same building where the New York State Lottery is at.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to see to see how much development has gone on in Schenectady from, let's say, 2006 for me until now, especially the downtown area, in comparison to like what I'm seeing in downtown Albany here. It's like leaps and bounds. It's like, don't sleep on a certain area. A certain area will come up and quietly prevail. So, but yeah, shout out to Schenectady on that one, man.
Yeah, Schenectady, man.
Yeah. But how did you get into design? What made you? Because I know you said you're an artist. I almost want to throw on an instrumental right now so we can have or we can create our own cipher. Because I definitely grew up right in here in the Arbor Hill community. So, but yeah, how did you get into your particular career? What made you want to be an entrepreneur?
Well, first shout out to Allah Born. I don't know if they still call it Allah Born. Do they?
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah. So I think I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just knew I hated everywhere I worked. I knew that I hated asking for permission. I knew that I knew it came from a place of wanting to be on my own time and not wanting to have to get permission from people who, to me, for the most part, were shitty. I worked for some good people along the way, but I just never really was that good with authority. And I always feel like once I grew to understand, like, the way that I operated was more or less in line with creative people. And I was always creative. I was always doing something. Like, I'm also a master barber. So I was a barber as well from 17, or no, actually, like, I started cutting hair from like 12 and started working at the barber shop in Schenectady at 17, got a master license at 20, then I quit. But I didn't know until later on in my life. And I would say there's two things that I think really gave me the audacity. And I always say this: the Yeezus album and The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Those are the two things that I consumed during a period of my life at the same time that instilled something in my brain that said, try stuff, conquer your fear, be loud. Like, you're already in a way rebellious. I used to send these agency-wide emails, just kind of random thoughts of consciousness. And it was just like weird, but I just felt like I had to speak my mind. But it wasn't until, actually, it's crazy. I always kind of did stuff. Like, when I was in between jobs when I was younger, I would like sell sneakers. I remember at one point I was selling like fake Air Force Ones. And like I said, cutting hair in a way is like you're being an independent contractor. And it was until I worked my last job when I discovered like the skill of embroidery, where I knew that I had something. And really it was starting it, posting stuff on Instagram, and then doing like festivals like Art on Lark and Lark Fest, to where I saw like, holy shit, people are really attracted to something I'm creating in my living room. And holy shit. Then I just started to see the difference in like what I enjoyed. So I would do my embroidery during my lunch break at my job that I was working at. I had an office job, and I started to consume more things that centered around entrepreneurship. So I started to be around more people. So coming to Troy, at the time when I was coming to Troy in like 2016, 2015, 2017, I started to attend this thing called the Breakfast Club. Power Breakfast, Power Breakfast. And it was Black focused. So it was ran by, Black people. And it was very focused on creative stuff, entrepreneurship. And obviously I was consuming stuff like Gary Vee and all that stuff. And I realized like, okay, I have an idea. And I started to really understand like, okay, what I'm doing can grow and I could actually do this for a living. And then I just started to see the popularity of my brand, also the vision for where I wanted it to go, and then things that began to happen at work. And I just was like, you know what? I need more time to devote to what I'm doing. And yeah, then 2018, I put my resignation in and I was like, I'm going to do this full time. And I started to understand the difference between like time and money, I would say. Um, Time being the most important thing. Money is very important. It's time. Time is money.
Mm.
But time being an important thing. And also for me to really showcase my excellence, I think any job that I was in, I could only do but so much because it wasn't in the realms of what I think I'm really gifted at. I could only use my gifts but so much if my job only requires this. Otherwise, I'm going above and beyond, and I'm either overworking, being underpaid, and I'll forever be unsatisfied because I'm not seeing all the pleasure in my work. Now, I did enjoy the work that I was doing because I was helping people. I used to work in the reentry program, helping people that get out of prison, get reacclimated, find them jobs. I was also doing cognitive behavioral groups with the same population and restorative justice groups with teens. And that was good. And I started to learn entrepreneurship and teach them that in the groups outside of the curriculum. Like, hey, let me teach you guys this stuff. Like, there's more possibilities, there's more options than just thinking, okay, I have to get out and I can only get a job. Now, I'm not going to say jobs aren't good. People need to make a living, but a lot of people compromise their happiness or they compromise their brilliance for just a paycheck. And I think that once we get out of the whole, I had to break out of the whole, that's just the American dream concept, and, I had pushback. My mom didn't want me to quit my job, but one thing that I had was an environment of people who were like, yo, congratulations. When I quit my job, they're like, congrats. It wasn't like, what are you going to do now? It was just like affirmation. It was information. It was collaboration. Hey, what do I do? How do I do this? What do I do next? They weren't asking me that question. I was left asking them that question because I had the support from people. So I feel like it was just important. And I just feel like, especially definitely for like Black people, I feel like we need to also take more control of our brilliance and be able to capitalize off of it and us set the price for our brilliance instead of us just kind of having to get a check for it, or get whatever is available, because it's 2022 and the pandemic, I think, was a great opportunity for us to really see how unsecure or insecure job security is. So it really made you have to dig deep, and that so just those things together, and then moving forward, I know that I thrive in areas where I can do what I do to the fullest and not just within a job description. Nice. So those are key things for entrepreneurship for me. And I like for the narrative to be switched. When I was in high school, like I didn't really like school like that. I played sports. I went to college for a few semesters, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm just sitting there thinking in my life, like, I wish I knew, I'm sure everyone does. I knew then what I know now, because I probably would have just got a GED and I would have started a business. I would have started some creative business, or I would have went to school all 4 years and then try to make the most of the school economy. In my school, there's 3,000 kids. If I sell one thing at $25 to half of the population just one time, that's $40,000 every year. And like, just thinking about that. And I've done that. I've sold hats for $25. I mean, I've sold sweats for $80 or $100 now. And so that's why it's important. And I just think that allowed, my brilliance and just, I think, really wanting the time factor. I want to get to a point to where the time is mine. If I want to go visit my girlfriend in Denmark, I don't have to ask for the time off. I can just go. Granted, the other part of it is I have to make sure my money is in line. I'm fully relying upon myself. So there's a trade-off. It's definitely not like I don't want to romanticize it. It's definitely a trade-off.
It's a lot of hard work in this thing right here.
A lot, endless hard work. So I just think for the future, like when when I have kids and things like that, like I want them to be able to, at least have the option, like, hey, your father has a business, why instead of going to get a summer job, start working for the van. Like, you guys will be able to take this over and give jobs to other people, and you can learn job skills. Hey, if you want to go to a job, that's fine. You get some job skills here, or all of the things that young kids will need growing up that we're not taught in school or anything like that. But most importantly, though, I will say, I just want to be able to have the time to be present for everything, no matter what. So, no, that was pretty long-winded.
But I appreciate it. I appreciate it because, one, you want the time to be able to spend it appropriately as you see fit, whether that's with family, whether that's with friends, whether that's being creative. You want the freedom to be able to do that. But you touched on so many other things. One, I want to go back to those power breakfasts or morning breakfasts that you would have, because I think I might know a little bit about those. But I'm gonna hold it 1 second.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think if I remember right, he might have been the man behind the scenes. And he probably put Kev Johnson as the front of it. But I want to say those morning breakfasts were put together by West Holloway. Was those the same? Was that the same group you were going to, or no?
No, but they had the same like concept though. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I definitely West Holloway.
Was that the Albany one? That was the Albany one, right?
No, I attended the one in Schenectady. Okay. I attended the. Did I? I think we met in Schenectady for some reason. I'm almost certain we met in Schenectady. But West Holloway was a good friend of mine. When I was running my mentoring program, the Golub Foundation became one of our biggest supporters. But that relationship grew out of a relationship that we grew with West Holloway. And then I just see them putting all of these dynamic people together to come together. So when you said that, I was like, man, I wonder if that's the same thing. Okay, but never mind. But still the same concept. And then two, when you decided to step out and become an entrepreneur, you also said that it was something your mother didn't approve of, right? I remember when I decided to quit my job, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna take the same amount of time and energy that I'm putting into this job, and I'm gonna put it into building my own business. And that's what I did, creating a 501c3 non-for-profit youth. And but it was funny.
Congrats.
As soon as you said it hit me here. Yeah. So sometimes I think it's kind of like the field of dreams. It's something that I say to myself all of the time. Sometimes people can't see the vision, right? But if you build it, they will come. And it's kind of like being able to prepare yourself, because like you said, you don't want to romanticize the process of being an entrepreneur.
Never.
Yeah.
And I did for a very short period of time, and I regret it because it hasn't always been romantic. But and I think it's also subjective, because there's some things that are worth the pain. There's pain either way. That's another thing I had to instill, is what pain are you willing to deal with, right? Because you're dealing with pain either way, because you're going to grow, you're going to deal with hardship, you're going to deal with conflict, you're going to deal with stuff that's going to make what you're doing not easy and possibly make you unhappy, all that stuff. So it's really, what pain do you want to deal with? And even in my worst of times in entrepreneurship, I always say to myself, if I had to go somewhere right now and work for 8 hours and take take time away from this, I don't know how I would do it. I honestly think I have workplace trauma. I always say that. Like, I don't think a lot of people talk about that as workplace trauma. The experiences you had at work that make you say, I don't want to deal with that again. And it's just a thing that stays on my heart every time I'm going through something. I'm just like, all right, right now you have to knuckle down or buckle down. It's just like when you got to, get back up or recoup things, you go do overtime at your job. You might pick up some extra shifts. Right now, it's like, all right, I've got to do things. And then there's gig economy stuff, like I walk dogs on the side and watch cats on the side if I got to make extra cash. It's like, I've got to make the most out of it without having to go back to what caused that trauma. But at some point I have to get that unpacked, you know.
Okay. And the, I guess one of the what do you call that thing? One of the positives in that, though, is just us realizing that there's so much space and opportunity to actually still provide and sustain ourselves. Like I said, you can do Uber, you can do Lyft, you can do dogs, you can do babysitting, you can be an entrepreneur full out, you know what I mean? And I think now the space that we're in, it's easier for us to talk about a lot of the things that we never used to talk about. We didn't talk about finances. We didn't talk about entrepreneurship in a way that some of the everyday things that we do could actually bring you more money than you going to a regular traditional 9-to-5. You know, we didn't talk about, as you said, trauma. So we didn't talk about, you know, therapy. We didn't talk about counseling. These are all things that are now on a table that weren't always on the table. And that's why I love this space. And when someone says to me, like, you know, I can't get it out, or I don't have anyone to get it out to, you know, not to say that it doesn't exist, because obviously you got to be connected to the right people to be able to help steer you in the right direction. But there's so many more opportunities for us to speak. There's so many more opportunities for us to collaborate and to grow and to build. But that has to start here. That spark has to be there first. You know what I mean? They do the work, because, you know, can't nobody do it for you.
That's a fact.
Can't nobody do it for you. That's a fact. But do you give yourself permission to change? And it seems like you do, because you told me you got into several different fields. But I'm going to ask that question. Do you give yourself permission to change, and why or why not?
So I feel like I think I need to start consciously doing, because I feel like I'm encouraging myself to like change, because and what I do, I have to change things. Like when something doesn't work, I'm left with, okay, do I persist, or do I have to change my route, or do it like, so I know the importance of change, and I know that change is something that we have to get used to. I think I need to be more proactive with making that like routine. I actually watched this video on YouTube, and it's called Think Like a Fashion Designer. And it's not even really about designing clothes. It's just about doing things different every single day, changing your routine every single day, and breaking routine so that you allow yourself to experience something new. You might find what you're looking for. You may just out of doing something different, you may end up utilizing a skill you may have been abandoning because you haven't changed. So I think I give myself permission to change. I think I need to just start taking the action and saying and being very conscious about making change. If something's not working, or if I'm in a rut, because sometimes I tend to be in a cycle of things, and I'm like, okay, do I push through this, or do I need to do something different? I think that's the struggle for me when it comes to changes. I know the importance of it, and I embrace it. It's just knowing when to go about the different behavior. And it's crazy because I was very involved in cognitive behavioral intervention, and that's all about identifying the thing, your goal, your end goal, seeing what's leading you into whatever conflicts you're in, and what new route you're going to take to achieve the goal, and obviously, you know, new conflicts. But so I absolutely give myself permission to change. I encourage myself to make changes every single day. It's now I have to follow through on doing things differently, just so it becomes second nature to me and I'm not as resistant to it. I embrace it mentally. I want it mentally. I say it, but I'm prone to following the same routine while thinking about change. And I need to not only be thinking about change, but incorporating that into my daily routine. My routine should be something different every single day. That should be.
I like that. I like it.
So,
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And my pastor said something maybe about a month or two ago. He talked about that most of us, and not even realizing it, we go through a grieving process whenever there is change. And that's not just for change for the worse, right? It could be a positive change, a good change. But if you're connected to your emotions, right, you might have some sentiments about a particular hat, right? Imagine you lose your favorite cat. For some people, it's like, oh, it's just a cat. Like, no, you know, that cat went with me everywhere, you know, or my mom gave me a cat or whatever. So, you know, when change happens, we grieve about the change, right? And some of us stay in a rut a little bit longer. Some of us don't have any emotional connection to it. But I've learned to be okay with change, and also going through the period of grief with the change, either if that's positive or negative. Like someone may have a good stock for me to go ahead and invest in. I'm like, well, I like what I like. You know, this one is working great for me. But it's like, but Tyrell, you can make so much more. Just try it. And I'm just like, well, all right. You know? So you go through that process of grieving with change. But like you said, making it, becoming more conscious of making room for it is also just as important. And, you know, through therapy, I've also learned that, you know, I'm what's called a vacillator. You know, I will sit with my thoughts. I will ponder. I will think about a situation 400 to 500 times.
Me
right?
too.
And like, man, I should have said this, or I should have did this. And it's just like learning how to deal with that level of anxiety within myself, and to find ways to change myself to become the best version of me. And those are everyday struggles that we all have within ourselves, within our minds, within our environment. And how do we find ways to come out to be our best selves, the whole version of us. You know what I mean? So,
I like the point of the grief period for change, or like the replacing of the thing that's either leaving, you know, like replace, even if it's habits. I was I forgot what I was listening to something, and they said you can't ignore habits, or you can't get rid of habits. You have to replace them with new ones. You know, so you can't say, hey, I'm no longer gonna, I don't know, eat donuts, right? But it's like, there's no getting rid of that. You have to replace that with something. So instead of that, it's like, when I get the urge to do this, it's like, if I want to go out running every morning now, instead of having a pastry for breakfast, now my new breakfast is essentially that run. You know what I mean? But I think it's important for like putting things away is that period of like, all right, I'm letting go of this. So it's like, how do I part ways with this thing I'm changing? And I think that's like, I never thought about that. It's like, all right, let me just, because we do grieve the change. I don't think I've ever acknowledged it. And I think that's something that'll help me get from the one thing I'm trying to change and get like onto the next. That's it. Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that right there. Yeah,
listen, that is what this space is for. That is what the space is for. And it's just like, well, I'm an avid reader. And one, I know off air we were talking, we got a mutual friend who's actually, if I'm an avid reader, I don't know what his level of reading is. Man, talking about you on air, but there's so much you can pick up through books. There's so much that you can pick up through conversations if you allow yourself the space to take it in. I think so many times we're eager to talk and not as eager to listen. But what they say, God has given us 2 ears for a reason. He's given one mouth for a reason. Do more listening, less talking.
Right. That's it. Yeah, it's a fact.
Yeah. But let me see, man, growing up for you, did you have a mentor? Was mentorship a part of your development as a person, Deep? What are your views on mentorship?
So I think it's very important, because I don't think I've ever had a very like a formal mentor. I mean, I played sports throughout my childhood and high school. I also played instruments from a kid all the way up to like early adulthood. So I think I had the opportunity for mentorship. I don't think I had but I think my focus was elsewhere. I think mentorship is very important. Like even now, like I'm understanding I'm 36 and I need mentors. I need entrepreneurial mentorship. I need all that stuff. And even me, I've been, when I've worked with young people, being a mentor, I've seen how I've transformed lives. Like I've seen it. Granted, I was only getting paid about $12 an hour for it, but I've seen how I've transformed lives from just being an example. And it made me like change my behavior and improve my behavior and my way of living. So it's important. As a kid, I didn't have direct mentors. So I had the Boys and Girls Club, I had sports, I had things, but what I think should have been the initial mentor wasn't there. And I think having the father figure would have been very important. Now, my father's in my life. We didn't live with my father. Yeah. And I had, older cousins. My older cousins were involved in other types of things. And, when you come up during the 90s and 2000s and just what hip hop culture was and Black culture was, or urban culture was, essentially was like what we consumed. It's like, this is it, so my mentors reflected people I looked up to that were celebrities, and they weren't doing the right stuff, but I think had I had more of that direct, like that sternness, like, hey, you're involved, you're interested in these types of things, you're gonna commit to something, like my mom put me in sports. I think partially it's like, okay, all your cousins did sports, this is what you're doing. Right. And also probably a supervision thing. I got to work till 5. Yep. You're getting you joining a sport, you're joining something, which is a good thing, but I also think, I thought to myself, like, I wonder what would have happened had someone saw certain things in me and helped to cultivate it as a very young kid. I think people supported me. Like, my mother never said I couldn't do anything. My father was always making sure, okay, if you want to play football or go to football camp, you can do that. But I never really had anyone come and try to cultivate that in a way that I see that I did with teens. And really like, okay, there's not going to be any sitting around. We're going to try to get you interested in things. What are you interested in? Let me really try to help cultivate your brilliance. And so I didn't have that as a kid. I had support. I had love. I just think the mentorship part was missing. So I know how important that is now, because like I said, I've been a mentor, not only just for kids, but even for adults, people getting out of prison. I've been a mentor for them, trying to help them get their mindset together when it comes to overcoming tough situations, when it comes to navigating relationships when they get out of jail or prison. Some that have done 20 years, like trying to get them to feel empowered, like there's a new opportunity, but also understanding, like empathy, showing empathy, like, hey, I know you also came from prison, and I know that's not the best place in the world to be, and that causes a lot of trauma. And I know that, so it's okay, that you're trying to get readjusted. But here is also what the world looks like as well. Here are other options. You really have to rely on yourself to really, push through. And it's just giving them that, and then just showing them that, and then me changing my own behaviors to be able to show them things like entrepreneurship while I'm teaching a class about job interviews. And it's like, okay, doing a job, bringing employers in, but showing them how to showcase their personality and just things like cultivating that, and then seeing those who have special things. So I actually helped 2 of them start businesses, nice. And I had to talk to their parole officer and be like, hey, they have a job. They're going to have a job because they need to, find a way to fund their business. But one of them took off. They were like taking off. And I helped to cultivate that. Nice. And they didn't really think about starting a business until I started, because this was right when I was transitioning out of like, okay, there's a chance I'm going to be out of here. So because I knew what entrepreneurship did for me, I always showed them, and I would show them my site. I would tell them like, hey, I started with a couple $100. Like, this is something that's my ideas. And, I have a website. And back then it wasn't what wasn't what it is now, but I spoke with conviction and the belief, and, some of them took heed to it, and I helped to cultivate it. And that's why mentorship is like, it's so important. Mentors are very important.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it's like, you also said something when it was just like, it made me think of the attachment theory, right? How we love or how we showcase love has everything to do with how we've experienced love when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
So mentorship, I'm making a correlation between love and mentorship because I think that there is one. And like you said, the first person or people that should have showed you that, you know, that's the thing that ends up staying with you for a while until we unpack it, right? Like, well, this is what I seen, and then indirectly, a lot of times we end up deciding to be the opposite of what we of what we seen without understanding why that person or persons were the way that they were. And for most times, for our parents, right, they didn't have the opportunities that we did, right? And it took me to become a father to realize that and to go back and revisit a lot of things with my own dad and just realize, oh shit, it wasn't as black and white as I once thought it was. You know what I mean? It was like, there's a lot of areas of gray, but a person can't give you what they don't have. And it helped me to give a little bit more grace, right? It helped me to, one, ask for grace for myself, for people who may be looking at me or judging me. I mean, but I love that. And it's just learning how to make space. We're gonna go back to that one, you know what I mean, to unpack things.
The grace is important too. Like that helped me to like understanding, okay, my parents, like I never look back and say, damn, if only my parents did this, this and that, because they did good enough, in my opinion. You know, I have siblings and we're all doing well and we were all loved. We didn't have to, we all were fed, we had birthdays, we had holidays, like we had family, like I didn't even really understand the concept of like lower middle class or upper class. Like I was living in what's called like the projects in Schenectady, and people thought I was rich. People say, "Oh, I thought you were rich," and I'm like, but it's because I had everything I needed, and you know, and just things like that. And that's what I look at more than I look at what wasn't there. I know what wasn't there, and I just know to make sure that is very abundant in how I raise my children, and also how I provide mentorship or even camaraderie with friends, or even in my relationships just in general. So it's like I learned it, but also giving my parents the grace and knowing like, but you guys still did good with what you could, with what you had. And now we're full of, all your children are adults, and you know, we're gonna take what we valued the most and what we didn't have and bring all of that into our lives and give that. So it's important. Grace is important.
I'm with you. I grew up poor and I didn't even know we were poor. But it was just like, because like you said, you have a lot of values, you have a lot of morals, you have a lot of good times and experiences. It wasn't until I really got older that I understood that we were poor, you know what I mean? But, you know, I was rich in other areas of life. And, you know, he said when a person is making do with what they have, they try to give us experiences that they didn't have. And it's and he's like, well, wow, you know, now with grace, you'll say, how did you do that, mom, dad, uncle, aunt, grandparents, without having the support, without having the resources? And it's just like, okay, it just gives you another perspective for us to carve out the lanes that we're carving out now as this generation. So
I say that my mother is the master. She's mastered the art of making it happen, no matter what. And I always tell them, like, you have mastered the art of just making it happen, because she's always done that. Always, even in our adulthood, like she's always done that. And that's one of the things where I'm like, I look at that and I'm like, all right, that's had to have been passed down. You know what I mean? Like that's a gift, a quality that's passed down to us because we saw it. It was exemplified. Even if we didn't understand it as kids, like you grew up and you realize like, wow, like in my mind, I'm like, my mother was a single mother, brought two of her kids to Disney World when we were kids. It's like people dream to do that, right? And I didn't really think about it like that, but I'm just like, my mom brought us to Disney World. Like she could have brought us to Central Park and we'd have been fine. Yeah. But she's like, you know, I'm gonna bring you here. Like, you know, she did everything to make sure that we had as much as we could. And like the art of making it happen, man, is like, I always tell my mom, you need to write a book about the art of making it happen because you always make stuff happen for us. So
thanks. Let me see, man. I'm gonna hit you with two more questions, Dean. I'm gonna let you go.
Sure.
Next question is because you know, I know the Schenectady area as well, not as much as I did because when I was younger, I actually would spend a lot of time in Schenectady because my dad lived there. So I would travel to Schenectady to go visit my dad.
Is he from there?
He's from Albany. He grew up in Albany,
Oh,
but
okay.
at that time, him, his girlfriend, and my two younger brothers were living out in Schenectady. So I would take the 55 from here when I was like 11 and 12 to go out there to go. But gun violence is something that have plagued both of our communities. I know it's rampant in Schenectady. I know it's rampant in Albany. But how have you been impacted by gun violence in the Capital District? Or have you?
So, I mean, I think it affects you generally because, I mean, I know people who've been shot and killed in Schenectady and even in Albany. I know my first time the first person I've known to fall victim of gun violence was someone from Albany. First time I went to a funeral, I was 16 years old. So I would say it affects me in a sense that seeing people that you know grieve, also when that's the stigma of a place that you're from, it's like that becomes like that's the packaging. You know, that's what it's seen as, and that's what it's kind of like marketed to people as, or the propaganda machine is that. And I think that it's, for me, so I haven't had any direct like relatives fall victim to it, but like I said, I've known people who fell victim to gun violence. I mean, I have I have a cousin who's locked up as a result of gun violence. So it's on the other side of it, rather than them being a person who was killed, they were a person who was convicted of murder. And I mean, I have a few cousins actually. So it's,
me too.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and you know, I trying to come to grips with like why that occurs, especially, I mean, looking at, I'd say like my cousins who are involved in shootings. It's like, first it's like, how, like what, like we weren't even raised like this. How did this happen? But I think that goes back into, you could be raised in the same house and still have a different life experience. And it's just, at the end of the day, I think the way it affects all of us is and especially as like Black men as well, it's like, I think that continues to, whether it's to each other or even to the world, it's like, it continues to put us in that light of, this is what we're projected as. And especially if we present a certain way, right? Like if I present, possibly if I wear a Yankee cap or I'm rocking a hoodie, just anything, it's like, it puts us back in that box of perception of, oh, this is just what Black men are. And I think that's unfair, you know? And I think that's why it's important for people such as ourselves to do as much as we can to strive to be excellent, and then do what we can when we have the power to make change, to whether it's donating to places, or whether it's helping with legislation or anything like that, or provide opportunities. I mean, I don't think just people randomly pick up guns and are like, yo, I'm just going to go shoot somebody today. Like, there's a lot of factors that lead up to why someone ends up shooting and killing someone, or why there's gun violence. I don't think people are just constantly like, today I'm just going to be a killer. You know, there's lots of factors that play into that. And, you know, going into people that I used to, clients of mine that got out of prison, hearing why they were involved in certain things, but then also looking at my own family and seeing like things that led up to why this person now is, you know, in prison for gun violence and environment. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. So like, there's no, I can't even pinpoint one way that it's affected me or impacts me, because it does on both spectrums, you know, whether it's a victim because they've been harmed by a gun, or a victim because they've inflicted it and now they're in the criminal justice system. So yeah.
Okay, so I know I want to let you go, man. I know you're a very busy person. And my last two official questions for you on the back community is, what about your life's path are you most proud of, D? If you were to pin it down to something, what about your life's path are you most proud of?
Um, I guess I would say my resilience. I think I've been able to overcome several different very difficult periods of life. Um, yeah, I think the ability to be resilient and also to recognize the resilience. I think that's, and also moving forward, knowing like I can be resilient, you know, and tough times are going to come, and I've been proven to get through them. So I would say that. I would say that, and just the acknowledgement of my continuous ability to be creative. It's like a stubbornness. I have like this. I'm stubborn, and I feel like it works as a tool when the world tells me no, or even I'm telling myself no. I feel like there's that voice that's going to say no, yes.
Said,
I'm gonna. This stubbornness
I
is gonna give
won't
me.
die.
Yeah. It's like you're gonna persist. It's gonna be uncomfortable. You may have the worst day of your life tomorrow, or it might be the worst week of your life because you know. But I feel like that's the ability to just to push through the pain and be resilient, because I've got through some tough times, and I'm sure that more will come. And I know for a fact I'll be better equipped for them.
Okay. Fair enough. I respect that. And this is going to be a good one. This was my favorite question from season 1. What's your favorite place to visit in the Capital District area, and why? And you'll be able to hit it from different points, you know what I mean? Because you've been in Albany, you've been in Schenectady, you know what I mean? You out in Troy. So yeah. So what's your favorite place to visit in the Capital District and why?
Man, that's tough. A favorite place to visit in the Capital District.
Got him.
You know something? I feel like it's many different places for different reasons, but I mean, I gotta say, if there's one consistent place that I go, and it may just be to drive through. I think. Now, when you mean place, you mean like area, right?
Yeah, place. It could be a establishment, outdoor, indoor. It could be, what is something that does it for you that just like, man, when I see this, it makes me whole. Or when I come home, you know, I like to do this. So it could be, you know, I'm interested. This question tells me more about what you identify with, what makes you cool, what makes you calm, what keeps you collective. Where's your space? What's your favorite spot to go?
You know, it's crazy. I don't even know if there's one space that gives me that. I feel like it all depends. I feel like it's just something I do. Whether honestly, every morning I go for a walk around Troy. It's the same route. I mean, I like to go to Peebles Island. I like to be outside in the nature. So sometimes that could be it, or going to different places in Troy where I can see all of Troy. But I think one thing that I think sometimes I go to, and it gives me kind of a variety of emotions, is driving through Schenectady. I go and I'll drive through Schenectady, and I'm not in Schenectady a lot, but sometimes I'll drive through Schenectady and go back to all of the old places that I either went to school, or just like where things either happened in my life, or places I'd be with my friends, and we ride bikes, or in my old neighborhood, the old apartment we used to live in. Like every now and then I'll walk over there, and I'll like, in my mind, I'm like visually seeing what it was when I was 9 years old. I tell people there was a moment of perfection I experienced as a kid, looking out of the screen door during the summer and seeing everybody outside on the basketball court. There was a smell, there was a temperature, there was all this. And sometimes I'll go back home and I'll walk through, or even drive through, and I'll relive that. And sometimes it gives me just a mixed amount of emotions, but I think sometimes I need that to be able to just kind of tap into my feelings, tap into how I'm feeling, tap into inspiration even.
Mm.
That's where I think I get the most in terms of just a variety of emotions. I go to many different places and, I'll feel relaxed, I'll feel calm, but I feel like that's what I do whenever I think sometimes I just need to feel a little bit of everything. Is going back home to Schenectady, driving through Schenectady, walking through Simon's Homes, and just reliving life in like 20 minutes.
Facts. Listen, it's called nostalgia. You know what I mean? That feeling is. I just had a beef patty, cheese, and cocoa bread last night, just cause. You know what I mean? There was a time where that was all I could afford to eat. But I love it, and it's just like we were just looking at new investment opportunities here yesterday, and while we were out, we're going to different areas, and I'm telling her, I was like, man, we did that there, or we did that. Yeah. So yeah, that's called nostalgia at its best, and I think that's what keeps us going, knowing that creative kid that is still inside of us, and what that creative kid could have created if had the right opportunities, the right resources, the right connections, and that creative kid is still inside of us now. So how do we allow them to be free and come out? So, that's what I just got. That's what I just heard when you just said that. But listen, D, man, I could probably stay on here with you for forever, bro, but I won't hold you up. Thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for being vulnerable enough to tell us more about Life Supply and what it is that you're doing. I expect Life Supply to be only one of many things that you're doing, because obviously you're passionate and you're creative. I wish you continued success, and I look forward to getting your story out to the people.
Absolutely. And pleasure being here. Thank you for having me. I was looking forward to this. So yeah, I appreciate it. And hopefully at some point we'll link up, man.
Oh, it actually might be today. I'm coming through to get some clothing. So yeah, I'll hit you off as soon as I let you go. But man, the back community, you have it best. You have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. David Reali, here on our show, on the platform, telling us about a Life Supply brand and what he does. Man, we'll play catch up soon.
All right, man. Take care.
Man, have a good day. Peace.
All right. Peace.
Keep climbing up the ladder. A Black Lives Matter. They matter. So all you young people, give me all. 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 Matter. A Black Lives Matter. They matter. A Black Lives Matter.